You don't know how strange your country is until it stops being your home. I've been living full time in South America for the last 4 years, but this time coming back to the US felt a little different than the last time. Now, I spent 10 straight months living in Asunción, Paraguay, without leaving, without any vacations. Then I spent about 6 weeks in Santa Cruz, Bolivia, before coming back to Boston to visit family and friends during the summertime. And whenever I come back now, there's always a sense of reverse culture shock or things feeling different here now that I've been away for so long. So if you've ever wondered what it actually feels like to come back to the US or your home country after living abroad for a number of years, I'm gonna share with you what genuinely surprised me after a few weeks being back in Boston. I'll share the good and the bad, so be sure to stick around until the end. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Alex. I left the US in 2022, built a better life in South America through earning remote income. Now I help other men do the same. So if that sounds interesting to you, hit subscribe. Let's dive into the video. All right, so being back in America after spending several years in South America, and again, I'm just visiting here in Boston, guys. So this is going to be some, reverse culture shock as far as what's different from the last time that I was here. All right, so in no particular order, we're going to start with the cost of living and the food prices. Now, if you guys watch my Paraguay and my Bolivia videos, I share a lot about, prices and cost of living for rent, food, for restaurants, pretty much everything across the board. And it's pretty different. I think that spread is actually increasing. Even though people think Paraguay is getting a little more expensive, I think the rate here in the US is outpacing the cost of living out there, if that makes sense. So for example, I took my parents out to breakfast for 3 people. Nothing crazy, right? Just regular breakfast with coffee, right? Basically just coffee. $70 for breakfast for 3 people. Pretty much the same when I visited here last year, so that's not too different. What is different is more like eating out for like subs or maybe burritos or something quick, just to grab a quick bite. I spent $15 just for a burrito. Even just getting an iced coffee like at a Dunkin' Donuts, which out here in Boston, Dunkin' Donuts is pretty much our go-to. We have Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks pretty much on every corner. And Dunkin' Donuts, I think I'm paying $3.50 just for an iced black, no cream, no sugar. Last year, that was around, I think, $3. So that increased by 50 cents. And then even just getting a large pizza or large calzone, guys, I'm dropping $40 for a large calzone here. I'm not even in Boston, I'm like north of Boston. So when you're eating out, someone like me, I eat out pretty much every day. That adds up quick. So I can only imagine people living out here, you must cook, pretty much every day, maybe go out to eat once a week, depending on what your income is, of course. But eating out here every day, it's just not that doable. Gas also isn't cheap, right? Gas here is nearly $4. Everyone here has a car, so you have to use your car every day. And then gas, if you're looking at nearly $4 a gallon, you're probably spending, it depends on the car, of course, somewhere between $200, $400, $600, maybe $800, maybe $1,000 a month, depending on what kind of car and how often you use it. And then Uber rides, of course, are expensive, right? Uber's just to get from 10, 15 minute Uber ride, I'm dropping $20, $30. Okay, compare that to places in South America, I'm only spending $2 to $3 a ride. Another thing I've noticed is apartments and housing, okay? So my brother recently bought a brand new house. It's a nice house, it's new, it's in a good area. It's a starter home. It's nothing crazy, all right? It's nothing crazy. It's a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, I believe. Maybe it's 2 full baths. Yeah, we'll just say 3-bed, 2-bath, nice kitchen. He has a yard. A good starter home, nothing crazy. He's spending close to $700,000 and it's probably 35, 40 minutes north of Boston. All right, you can only imagine what the mortgage payment is on that. Not to mention taxes. Taxes here, guys, are getting outrageous. People are spending maybe like $5,000, $6,000 just for taxes on an annual basis. So when you factor in the mortgage payment, right, when the principal and the interest plus the taxes and the insurance, guys, people are spending outrageous money out here just to live a basic lifestyle. Versus in Paraguay, you can buy, even though people think Paraguay is getting expensive, you can still buy a nice 1-bedroom condo. Yeah, it's not a single family house with a yard, but I'm talking in the best part of the city and the epicenter, like, Villa Mora or Las Lomas, for even less than $100,000 still. We're talking like a new building, 24-hour concierge, pool, gym, all that stuff, right? So a house, you're probably looking more like $150,000, $200,000 for a nice house. But you can also get some nice houses for less than $100,000, a little bit outside of Asunción. And then if we compare apartments, just the studio alone now, 35 minutes north of Boston, not even in Boston, it's going for $2,000 a month. All right, I'll even share some screenshots that I found on Zillow. That same studio in Paraguay, I'm spending probably 1/3 to maybe even 1/4 of that price if it's a studio, right? We're not even talking a 1-bedroom, like a full 1-bedroom with a separate room. And in Bolivia, it's even more affordable. I won't even go into that in detail. I'm just noticing that the cost of living and the food prices is continuing to go up. And a lot of people here just see it as a normal thing. Now let's talk car dependency and walking. So the beautiful part of this lifestyle is I haven't owned a car in 4 years. Okay, this part has been life-changing because think about it. Think about how much you spend for your car, right? Your car payment, your insurance, your gas, your occasional maintenance, parking tickets, oil changes. Just people are spending at least $1,000, if not more, per month. So right off the bat, if you don't need a car, boom, that goes straight into your bank account. In Paraguay and Bolivia, and pretty much everywhere I live in South America, I live in the most walkable neighborhoods, right? Literally, I step outside my apartment, my building, and have everything that I need. Coffee shops, grocery stores, restaurants, bars, whatever I need, I have. But back here, you can't get anywhere without a car. And anyone who doesn't have a car, like, is seen as being poor, unfortunately. Versus in South America, if you don't have a car, and assuming you're living in, a good area, which you will be living in a good area if you're living in South America, that's just normal as an expat or digital nomad. So whenever I come back here, I find myself walking a lot less and moving a lot less overall. Now, don't get me wrong, I still get my workouts in, I still do my calisthenics, but when it comes to getting from place to place, like, I still need a car to get around, which is a big contrast from my life in Paraguay. Now let's talk about the ocean. This is a good thing about being in Boston, and not a good thing about being in Paraguay or Bolivia, because both Bolivia and Asunción, Paraguay, they're both landlocked. So just seeing the ocean is something that I didn't realize I genuinely missed a lot. And what I find myself doing now after work, after taking sales calls, is walking along the beach almost every single day after work. And what I found is almost no one is there after 5 o'clock. Most people go to the beach here only during the summertime, and it's only on Saturdays or Sundays from 8 a.m. to maybe like 2, 3 p.m. But being at the beach after 5 p.m., after work, putting your feet in the sand, putting your feet in the water, maybe taking a dip in the ocean, even just talking to my family and friends, none of them have been to the beach this whole summer, I think. I mean, talking to my parents, they haven't been to the beach once. My brother, he works as a full-time fireman and he's a personal trainer, hasn't been to the beach since I've been here. Some friends that I hang out with here, again, not really like beach people. And when I'm walking along the beach after 5 o'clock, there's almost no one there. So I think people here take the beach for granted for sure. They don't realize that, there's places like Paraguay where people would love a chance just to see the ocean, right? For the first time. So many people in Paraguay have never seen the ocean. Obviously a good percentage have been to Brazil. Usually they go to Brazil to see the ocean, but most people haven't. And for me personally, I just realized that being near the ocean is something that I miss. So my future plans moving forward, I don't need to come back to Boston every single year just to see the ocean, assuming I'm living in Asunción or Santa Cruz full time. I'll just go to the northern part of Brazil where it's still warm during the winter season in Asunción, or just go to the beaches in Colombia, right? I can go to Santa Marta or San Andres, or I can go to DR, the Caribbean, maybe in Puerto Rico where my dad's from. The point is, if you're someone who grew up near the ocean, you like if you already know that you like the ocean, then you don't want to be stuck in a landlocked country for the entire year. Because once you do go back to the beach, you realize how much you actually missed it. And that's one thing that I love about whenever I come back to Boston is being near the ocean. Another thing I noticed coming back is that people seem isolated here. So when I came back, I had drinks with some close friends. How many? There was 3 of us in total. One of them brought his girl. And basically, those guys, they all know each other very well. So they all went to high school. We all went to high school together, right? And we're all from the same city. But none of them had seen each other in nearly a year. They all live within 15 minutes drive from each other, but they don't really hang out because everyone's really just busy working or busy with their families. And I get it. As we get older, you don't have as much time. But still, I think it's important to make time for friends, for guy friends. We're talking here specifically, right? And Paraguay is not like that. Paraguay, hanging out with your friends frequently is very normal, regardless of what age you are. I have friends in their 30s, 40s, even some in their 50s. And I just think there's more opportunity for community in Paraguay as a man in his 30s. Because look, if you just play paddle once a week, if you play soccer once a week, find some type of sport that you can frequent at least 1, 2, maybe 3 times a week, that alone can help you build your social circle of guy friends, which I think is important. And then from there, someone's going to have a birthday, someone's going to want to go out, people are going to have dinners and stuff like that. You'll get invited to asados. Pretty much every Sunday there's an asado all year round, right? I'm not just talking expats. I'm talking Paraguay. I'm talking locals as well. I will say that the exception is weekend lake homes or campers. I have a few friends that they have either a home or a camper out in New Hampshire or Maine. During the summertime, it's pretty popular. People from the Boston area, like during the weekends, they go up to their camper or lake home and spend the weekends there pretty much nearly every single weekend during the summertime only. But I think that's definitely a good thing. And I'm actually heading up there next week to Maine for a fantasy draft. I'm supposed to fill in for a friend who can't make it. And I haven't been following the NFL in some time. I used to be a part of fantasy football every single year. I just lost touch. Living in South America, you lose touch with American sports. And that's a good part of the culture here is those lake homes. Or tight-knit groups like my brother. My brother's a firefighter, so he's always going to have his brotherhood with that. So I think that's a good thing as well. But just in general, The culture here in terms of isolation is more normal. Not seeing your friends for over a year is more normal versus in Paraguay, that's nearly unheard of. This next one here is definitely different from the other times I visited back to the US. So wanting to leave America isn't seen as crazy anymore. Back in 2022, when I left, I remember it was August 2022. I was sitting in a bar with a couple friends, telling them that I already booked my ticket to Medellin, Colombia. I was gonna get rid of my apartment, sell my car, and basically spend a few months in Colombia and see how I liked it. And both of them thought I was crazy. Both of them thought it was a bad idea. It was dangerous. Why would you want to leave America, right? Blah, blah, blah. But now these same friends are thinking a lot differently. And some of the conversations I've been having, look, I got a friend who has family. He has 2 kids, a wife, beautiful home here in north of Boston. Now he's strongly considering moving to Spain. Luckily, his income is remote, does loans in the area, and he's doing very well with it. So his goal within the next few years is to move somewhere in Spain and leave the US behind. Another friend is dreaming. He would love to live in Nigeria. He's actually visiting Nigeria right now to visit his brothers. And he's another one. He has kids. He has a wife. He has a nice home right here north of Boston. But his wife is American and her family is here. So that's probably going to be nearly impossible to do. But he would love to be able to do that, move back to Nigeria and leave the US. Another friend's talking about retiring to the Dominican Republic. And he's already taken steps. He's already purchased land in the DR because he knows that when he retires, that's where he's going to move to. The unfortunate part is he wants to wait 20 years before he actually moves, because that's when his pension kicks in from his work. So my thinking is like, why would you wait 20 years? Like 20 years of being in a place that you know is not ideal for you and your family, because you're waiting on a pension. Now, I get it. When you have a family and kids, you have to be you can't take as many risks as if you don't have that many responsibilities, right? But still, if he could find a way just to earn somewhere between 3 to 5K per month, even in the DR, you can live a really good life with a wife, family of 3 kids he has. You could still live a really good life there, pretty much similar to what he's living here now, right? He can have his home. He could be in the DR. He can be in the DR in a good location. But he's already been at this same company for so long that in his mind, it's only 20 more years before his pension kicks in. And it's a good pension, to be fair. But still ask yourself, if you're in a similar position, do you really want to wait 20 years doing something that you don't enjoy doing and being in a place that is not ideal for you just because you have a future paycheck coming in 20 years from now? I'm sure a lot of people in the States are in that position. And then I have another friend who is married, but he has no kids, and he's looking for a way to also live in the DR. He's also from the DR as well. And I'm like, dude, all you got to do is make 3 to 5K per month, even 2 to 5K per month, and you're there, right? You don't have to spend your $2,500 rent here, spending a couple $100 just for a dinner with you and your girl, being stuck during the wintertime, only having really 3 months of good weather. My point is, more and more people are starting to see that the juice in the US isn't worth the squeeze. It's just not worth the value anymore. And now it's becoming normalized that, okay, one day when I do this, or when I retire, when I get my pension, when I figure out the remote income part, then I will move. That seed is now planted in a large percentage of Americans after being back here for just a few weeks. All right, and just to piggyback on the previous slide, a big reason why people want to leave, at least Boston, for example, or the US in general, is because housing, right? People are getting squeezed out. More and more younger professionals, even students, are willing to live further outside of Boston, which is really the epicenter of everything, right? As far as hospitals, schools, jobs, universities, all that. In smaller towns such as Lynn, Massachusetts, which used to be considered the hood where nobody wanted to live in, they're moving to places like Lynn now, right? Which is driving up rents, which is pushing long-term residents out and being displaced. And I don't even know where those people go, to be honest with you. Now, I have another friend who has a home, and he's had his home for about 10 years. So he's built up a good amount of equity in that home. And him and his wife want to move as well. Not necessarily outside the country, but want to move outside of their area. The problem is a lot of people, similar to my friend, they're tied to mortgage rates that are a lot better before than they're seeing right now. So if they were to sell, not only are the prices higher, right, to buy a new place, but also the rates are higher as well. So to move out of their situation now, their payment's going to be a lot more, which makes them feel stuck in the house in the city that they're in. And that's a problem with ownership. I think people don't realize that when you buy a home, I think it's really a trap. If you're someone who watches the channel, my guess is you value sovereignty and freedom, which is why I'm a big fan of renting. When you rent in a place, it's much easier to break your lease. It's much easier just to let your lease expire at the end of the year, after the 12th month. and then you're free to go wherever you want to go, right? So a big difference that I see here in the US, the culture, is people feeling trapped in homes, in mortgage rates, and locations, versus my friends back in Paraguay or in South America remain flexible and mobile and nimble. And that freedom, I think, leads to more happiness, leads to more quality of life, especially if you're a man. We all value freedom and sovereignty at the end of the day, right? And that contrast in freedom is very noticeable between both sides. Another thing I've been noticing, a trend here in the US, is that women are waiting later to have kids. Now, maybe this sounds obvious with the times that we're living in, but I'm seeing it in my direct circle. There's literally 3 couples who are currently trying to have children. And all of the women are in their mid to late 30s, basically my age. And what I'm learning is the process involves medications, it involves doctor appointments, it involves certain shots that cost a couple $1,000s from what I hear. It involves significant money, emotional energy, all just to try to have their first child and most likely their only child. So this is a pattern that's becoming more and more normal in the US. And it's something that stands out as very different from life abroad. Now, life abroad, you can also look at the other extremity, right? Whereas in South America, a lot of women have their children very young, I think a little too young, right? So you don't want to go too young, but you also don't want to go past 35 because it just becomes more difficult, becomes more emotional, becomes expensive. But it's just another noticeable difference that I've seen, right? US, women having kids 35 plus mostly, if at all. And then South America, women having kids like under 23, which again is probably the other extreme. Now, as men, obviously, we're pretty fortunate. I think the ideal age for a man is to have kids probably late 30s, maybe early to mid 40s would probably be ideal, because hopefully you're in a much better financial position. Hopefully you're, you know who you are, you know what you want, you know what kind of woman that you want, you'll choose right, you're ready to be a father, right? I think as a man, I think even like 45, that's probably prime, that's a good age. As long as you take care of yourself physically, and as long as you have, anti-aging routines, which is for another video. But my idea for having kids, I think for me personally, like sometime in my early to mid 40s would probably be a good age. But unfortunately for women, they're learning this too late, that for them, you got to do that. You got to do that in your mid to late 20s, early 30s tops. Otherwise, it's going to be a little more complicated. But I'm just showing you a trend that I've been seeing. Another thing I've noticed is that the division, the politics has just been getting worse. And also, there's a lot more Latinos in Boston now too, which I thought is interesting. So of course, the country's more divided than ever, right? People either strongly love or they hate the president. And if you're on one side or the other, then you're not going to get along at all. Versus me, I've never been political, right? That's part of the reason why I actually like Paraguay. Paraguay is a country that values freedom, sovereignty, property rights, territorial taxation, right? And honestly, back in Paraguay, politics doesn't even come up. It's not even a thing. So that's obviously a big difference. And then as far as more Latinos arriving, yeah, I mean, restaurants that, like for instance, the breakfast that I took my parents at, that used to be just all, Americans working there, waitresses, waiters, staff. Now it's mostly Latinos. And when I asked, my parents said it's probably due to the ICE situation, because in the Northeast, I mean, it's less risky than if you're someone in Texas or Florida or California with the whole ICE thing going on. I guess they feel a little more safe being in the Northeast. So there's that trend going on too. I guess Latinos are moving up north to avoid the whole ICE situation, which I think is interesting. You even see more Latino businesses, right? There's a nice coffee shop here that I've been going to, which is owned by Colombians, and they're from Medellin. So instant rapport building. I think it's a good thing, especially for me, spending so much time in South America. It's easy for me to build rapport. And from the conversations I've been having, of course, their goal here is to make their money here. And then eventually they want to help their families back home, or eventually even move back home. So that's it for this video, guys. I mean, coming back here, of course, costs have been getting higher. Isolation is real. The shift in mindset around living abroad is a little more surprising and encouraging at the same time. More and more people are starting to see the light. And the freedom of remote work means you don't have to wait 20 years to live the life that you actually want. Right? I'll remind you guys as many times as you need to hear. With just 2 to 5K per month earned remotely, location independent, your entire life changes. Your quality of life rises through the roof. And I'm talking to you men specifically, because I know men, when it comes to values, sovereignty and freedom are gotta be up there for most men. I'm talking like 95% of men. And remote income gives you that sovereignty and freedom. And if you've made it this far into the video, I'm actually on a new journey. So part of the reason I came back to the US is not just to visit family and friends. It was also to get my life insurance license. I've had a number of friends recently get into life insurance and make really good money with it. And to be honest, I've been a little bit fed up with the high ticket sales space. And I've talked to other friends in the high ticket sales space, setters and closers, who are getting fed up with the industry as well. For me personally, it just comes down to ownership instead of being tied to a job. So again, we're talking freedom and sovereignty. Being in a remote sales job ties you to meetings. It ties you to, having a boss, asking permission to take time off. That's what bothers me. For other people, it's other things. But life insurance sales gives me that opportunity where I don't have a boss, I don't have to attend meetings, and I still make good money remotely. Not only that, once I start doing well with it, I can also recruit my own team and start earning override. So all that to say, if you guys want to follow my life insurance, remote life insurance sales journey, check out my Substack. It's linked below. And if you made it this far into the video and you're interested in moving or visiting a place like Asunción, Paraguay, I recently launched a new product with my friend Brody called Everything Asunción. It's basically a relocation guide or an onboarding document to get you settled in and acclimated and integrated into Asunción very quickly. If you want to learn about that more, I did an entire video on it. You can find it right here, and I'll see you there.